Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending our candidate forum for the riding of Kitchener-Conestoga. My name is James Sebastian Scott from City News 570, and I'll be the moderator for today's discussion. The Chamber takes its political process very seriously, as they are nonpartisan and work with all elected officials municipally, provincially, and federally. These candidate forums are an important opportunity for our members and the community to hear about issues of concern and importance to the business community. This is a third of 4 events organized by the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce in advance of the June 2nd vote. The forum for the Kitchener-South Hespeler riding will be held this afternoon. I want to thank our title sponsor, Kitchener-Waterloo Association of Realtors, our media sponsors, City News 570, and Rogers TV as well. The format for this event will be 90-second introductory remarks from each candidate, followed by questions in priority areas identified by the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce through their advisory committees and responses from the membership at large. The questions will be asked in rotation. The moderator reserves the right to terminate answers where appropriate or to grant additional chances for candidates to speak to ensure fairness in speaking times. At the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for closing remarks, which will proceed in reverse order from opening remarks. We'll now commence with 90-second opening remarks. The candidate order as determined for today is Karen Meisner of the NDP Party, Melanie Van Alphen of the Ontario Liberal Party, and Mike Harris of the PC Party of Ontario. Karen, we'll begin with you with opening remarks.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the organizers for putting together this forum, allowing this opportunity for us to connect. Thanks to everyone who's watching online or watching on TV. This is a really, really important election. We've seen throughout the past couple of years how interconnected the different systems are, how connected our health is and our economy, as well as how connected we all are. And so it's really important that we are very strategic about ensuring that everyone remains healthy, safe, and fulfilled. Across Ontario and Kitchener-Conestoga, the NDP are proposing some really strategic investments in these crucial areas to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to live successful, fulfilling lives. The opportunity is right there at our fingertips. We just haven't realized it yet, and New Democrats know that it's possible. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today and want to thank the Chamber and Rogers and other sponsors for hosting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. And Melanie will go with you for your opening statement.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, James. Thank you to those organizing the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce and those sponsored, as already mentioned in your opening remarks, James. As already mentioned, my name is Melanie Van Alphen, the Ontario Liberal candidate for Kitchener-Conestoga. I decided to put my name on a ballot because I believe that we need leaders who listen and lead with compassion and understanding. Those that who are present in the community and are willing to work with those in the riding and truly represent the voters at Queen's Park. I thought I'd take an opportunity just to give a little bit about myself, to share a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Kitchener. I now live in Woolwich Township with my family. We've lived there for the last 14 years. I have been a school board trustee since 2014, very proud of the work I've done in that role to advocate for student achievement and well-being. And I think the experience that I've gained in that role, especially being vice chair and chair of the board, will really help me in this role if elected on June 2nd. I'm really proud to be a Liberal candidate. I think our platform is very comprehensive and many people can see themselves in it, especially since it was a full consultation with many and worked with the people of Ontario to be developed. Thanks again to everyone, and I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, Melanie. Mike, we'll go with your opening remarks now.
Yeah, thanks very much, James. And thank you to, of course, my fellow candidates for being here with us this morning, and to all the organizers, the Chamber, everybody that's put this together. It's really great to be back here again. Of course, I think many of you probably know me. I'm Mike Harris, the Progressive Conservative candidate currently running for re-election in Kitchener-Conestoga. And I'll say it's been an honor representing this riding as MPP for the last 4 years. A little bit kind of about the backstory on me. As a young family, we made the decision to move here about 10 years ago, like so many others, because of the opportunities that the region presented, and I'm proud, very proud to call Kitchener my home. And I understand the region's dynamics and how important it is to work together to advance our top priorities like investment in healthcare, community and recreation spaces, and transit infrastructure. And I'm very proud of the PC Party's plan to grow Ontario's economy with a focus on making life more affordable in our communities right here in Kitchener-Conestoga. So once again, thank you very much to everyone who's put this together, and looking forward to hearing some questions from the Chamber community.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. We'll begin now our question and answer portion here of the debate. To begin, we will begin with housing as the first topic. So Melanie, we'll begin with you on this first question here. The average home price in Waterloo region is now $1 million. The average two-bedroom apartment in our community rents for $1,356 a month. Our population is growing faster than our housing supply, and we are projected to remain one of Canada's fastest growing communities. You can see the concern. How will your plan ensure we remain a livable community?
Thanks for that question. Definitely an important conversation to have about housing, and something that we've heard at the doors always. Every day we're out and someone brings up housing or rent control. Speaking with a young family in Kitchener, we heard about his struggles and his young family about he rents his house, but the owner is now going to be selling. So he's in a situation where he is afraid he's going to lose everything he has and not have a place to call home. With mortgages he wouldn't be able to afford, and if a new owner comes in, they're likely double the rent. So definitely something that is on top of mind for many people in Kitchener-Conestoga. Some of the areas that we as an Ontario Liberal Party have in our plan to make it more affordable and livable is creating a new Ontario Home Building Corporation, really to finance and build housing of all types across Ontario, and especially in our riding. We will end the waitlist for social and supportive housing as well, and really work at building affordable homes for first-time home buyers. We do have a very ambitious goal of building 1.5 million homes over the next 10 years, but many of those, 138,000, I believe, is designated for deeply affordable homes. So we're going to work with that. Renters, as mentioned in the question and in what I'm hearing at the doors, deserve more predictability and stability as well. And we will definitely bring back rent control to all homes and provide renters that availability for home ownership in the future. We'll work with and collaborate with municipal partners as well here in the townships and across Kitchener to work on accelerating those projects. As I said, the Ontario Home Building Corporation, that's their role, is really work with all partnerships to try and accelerate those building those homes faster. We also have a plan in place to end chronic homelessness. Not going to go into all of that today, but we have a very ambitious goal to provide partners and municipalities $100 million per year to promote housing first, and really work with our partners within the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, same question for you. How will your plan ensure we remain a livable community?
Yeah, just like Melanie, we've heard this time and time again at the doors, and it's really something that I think resonates with just about anybody, whether you're a senior or all the way down to somebody that's maybe just coming out of college or university or entering the workforce. Lots of people have grandkids. Lots of people want to make sure that they've got a stable place to call home. And when you look at what we've done over the last 4 years as an Ontario PC government, we're really, really focused on trying to increase more supply. So what does that mean? It means working with municipalities. It means trying to figure out what the barriers are for them in regards to what's holding back things from a local decision-making level. Working with AMO, trying to work with our home builders across the province, not just here in Kitchener-Conestoga in the region, obviously, but across the province, because this is something that has become an issue countrywide, to be quite frank. And we've put forward a plan, and our plan is working. We're going to be building 1.5 million homes over the next 10 years. We've already seen this come to fruition. We've seen 100,000 new home starts in 2021. alone, and that's the highest amount of home starts in 30 years. So it really does show that what we've put forward from a progressive conservative standpoint is working. We are building more affordable housing. We're building more attainable housing, single family homes, purpose-built rental apartments, or purpose-built rental homes. It can't just be a focus on downtown densification. It has to be something for everybody. And I think that's what we as progressive conservatives really want to put forward, is that there will be a choice for everyone, and that you won't be put in a position where you have to maybe make a decision that you don't want to. And if you've want to live in our beautiful townships, you'll have the opportunity to do that. If you want to live downtown Kitchener, let's say, or close to the LRT and be able to access some of the great transit facilities that have been built out here in the last few years in the region, you'll have an ability to do that as well. So really looking forward to, again, working with our municipalities, working with our home builders, working with our tradespeople. I think that's a part of the conversation that really hasn't been talked about in the debates that we've been part of over the last little while, is trying to increase the people that are in the skilled trades, the people that are actually building these homes, because without them, they won't be built. So I think it's something that really, again, is top of mind. We hear a lot at the doors. We've had it come up in a few of the debates that we've done. Obviously, we see the news articles almost every day about it. And the Ontario PCs have a real plan to build more houses and get it done. Thank you, James.
Thank you. Karen, how will your plan ensure we remain a livable community?
Thank you so much for the question. Fundamentally, the Ontario NDP believe housing is a human right. We are in a crisis of affordability. There's both the issue of supply, as mentioned by others, but that's not the whole of the issue. Everyone deserves a stable place to live, a place that they can call home, a place that they can afford. As mentioned, families are facing evictions, rent evictions. We have parents who have grown children at home because they simply can't afford to rent a space or buy a home. And it's a very big concern for people. In 2018, the Conservatives removed rent control on new builds, which is part of the problem we're facing today. Like other parties, we are proposing 1.5 million new homes by acting on a housing affordability task force recommendations. We need to reduce the barriers to intensification as well, and exclusionary zoning, and really address the need for that missing middle of housing: duplexes, triplexes, laneway homes. It's not just about building big homes out in suburbs. That's not what I'm hearing people want. Additionally, we need stronger measures on speculation. So an Ontario NDP government would introduce a vacancy tax on those that don't pay taxes on Ontario, and a use it or lose it tax on developers that have permits and are ready to build, but are waiting because they're driving up costs. So there's a number of things that are part of this issue. But ultimately, there are some tangible things that can be done to address the housing crisis. It's not just a Waterloo region or a Kitchener-Conestoga situation. It's across the province, the country, and globally. In fact, there's housing issues in other parts of the world as well. So the measures that the Ontario NDP are proposing are getting at some of those root causes about the supply, but also the other barriers that are being faced within the system, as I mentioned before, about intensification and so on. So all of these together will create and provide opportunity to have some stability to the housing system, because right now it is incredibly out of control. So there are a number of things that we can do to fix that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Mike, the next question will remain with housing, and you'll be the first one to answer. A large-scale rental project takes 4 to 6 years to get units on the market. Office space can be converted to residential space in a fraction of that time, and is often located near existing transit routes. How will your plan get housing stock online quickly to respond to our urgent needs?
Yeah, well, this is a really great sort of segue from the last question, because I think this is exactly what we're talking about when we're saying we're going to work with municipalities. we see time and time again where there's projects that are just sort of stuck behind this wall of red tape. And, you know, it quite frankly can just be someone checking a box, or it might have to be something a little bit more substantial. So giving municipalities the tools to actually move forward and see these projects coming to life. I know there's one in downtown Kitchener right now that is some old church space that's going to be converted into rental apartments, affordable rental apartments. And they've had some troubles. We've been working through our office to try and figure out how we could streamline that. And we've seen some really good results. So again, it's continuing to work with municipalities. It's viewing this challenge from a provincial level as something that really needs to be addressed. Previous governments didn't necessarily address it as best as could be done. And it's put us into a position now where we're playing catch up. So seeing more affordable homes come on the market, or more purpose-built rentals come on the market, seeing choice, being able to have people living where they want to live, making sure that they've got a stable roof over their head. You know, that starts from whether it be with our shelter systems, whether it be making sure that people have good and meaningful jobs, right up until you know, being a senior and wanting to stay at home a little bit longer and maybe not moving into long-term care, or a senior's apartment as soon as they, you know, would like. Being able to have that continuum, have the supply available, and really reduction in red tape, working with municipalities, it's the way to get it done.
Thank you, Mike. Karen, same question. How will your plan get housing stock online quickly to respond to our urgent needs?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it is urgent. Absolutely. And I think what we are seeing is a lack of action, quite frankly. This, while urgent, this is not a new problem. You know, housing prices have been going up for years. And certainly in the last 3-4 years, it has, you know, houses are doubling. We're into $1 million home territory. That seems, you know, unheard of, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. Mike mentioned, you know, that previous governments have failed to address it. I'll remind Mike that he was part of a previous government that failed to meaningfully address it. And that, you know, the proposals about working with municipalities have been asking about exclusionary zoning for some time now, and there's not been any movement on that. So we really need to create partnerships with municipalities and ensure that we are working together in a way that's supporting what people in the community are asking, which is not, you know, a lot of suburban sprawl. They certainly don't want us paving over farmland to build $1 million homes. They're looking for something different now. They're looking for opportunities and different options to meet their needs. They're looking for homes that are multi-generational and everyone has a space to call their own. They're looking for, you know, as I mentioned before, triplexes, laneway homes, all of those sort of missing middle that that the NDP are proposing that we address in a meaningful way. So as I said before, there's lots of solutions that we can do to start to tackle this crisis and to start to work together and ensure that people fundamentally have a safe, warm place to lay their head at night. And that's what our plans are about.
Thank you. Melanie, we'll finish with you on this. How will your plan get housing stock online quickly to respond to our urgent needs?
Right. So clearly it's already been said, this is a very urgent need across Ontario, and housing prices have been increasing at a ridiculous amount, impacting so many people. I think the key focus here is to make sure that we are working in collaboration and really engaging with our partners at a provincial level and at a local level with municipalities and those in the community, right? That the realtors, developers, builders, we have to work all together collaboratively to make sure that we're addressing these concerns and thinking outside the box, really coming up with innovative ways to make sure that these projects can come to fruition in a quickly, timely, and appropriate manner, making sure that we are getting rid of the barriers that municipalities are facing, so that we can work together to make that happen. As mentioned already in the previous question, the Ontario Liberal Party will be bringing in the Ontario Home Building Corporation, and that goal and their focus is really to work with all the communities, not-for-profit housing partners, like I said before, developers and builders as well. It's a holistic approach to make sure we have as many voices at the table to make sure that we're addressing these concerns. We'll definitely work with our partners as well at the municipal level to bring in more resources and funding to help out in that end, and we will end exclusionary zoning. You mentioned in your question too about transit. Very much of our platform talks about bringing housing closer to transit as well, to work with less cars and stuff, and people have more livable, walkable communities. And I think it's important to share that I'm proud of our work as a Liberal Party with the current platform we've done, because we've really taken the time to consult with everybody across the province on all of these areas, and we've really listened to their voices in order to develop the platform. So work is already being done, and we'll continue to do that work if elected.
Thank you. We'll move on to transit as a next topic here. And Karen, we'll start with you on the first question. Are you committed to the current timeline for completion for two-way all-day GO service between Waterloo Region and Toronto by 2024? Yes or no?
Just a yes or no, eh? Yeah, I mean, the two-way all-day GO has been a conversation for a really long time, and we know that it's not just folks traveling from Waterloo Region to Toronto or area. It's also the other way around. We have a really thriving innovation sector and business sector in Waterloo Region, and so there's folks traveling in both directions. So two-way all-day GO is really key and necessary to addressing the transit issues that we face with, building big highways and so on. That's not how people want to spend their time stuck in traffic. And certainly having alternative modes of transportation is absolutely necessary to ensure that that people can get to where they need to go. And we're also addressing, this climate crisis that we face as well. So it's all part of it. So yeah, the two-way all-day GO is absolutely something that we've been hearing about for years and necessary for Waterloo Region and beyond.
Thank you. Melanie, is your party committed to the current timeline for completion for two-way all-day GO service between Waterloo Region and Toronto?
Very specific question. I love it. So we are definitely committed. It's to two-way all-day GO for the area, for sure. It's in our platform. It's something that we've committed to. I'm actually going to say that I can't actually commit to the time frame because I'm not 100% sure on what that time frame is, but I will definitely look into that further and work towards that goal, because I think it's something that's been in the works for quite a long time. And I think people are frustrated that they've been continuing to hear about it and it hasn't come to fruition. So definitely something that we're working on and committed to doing as soon as possible, because we have a very robust transit plan in our platform, which I won't get into since you did ask a very specific question, but we're committed to it, and we'll work very hard to get that done as soon as possible.
Thank you. And Mike, two-way all-day GO as well. Are you committed to the completion time?
Yeah, 100%. This is something that has been, I think, well articulated by the Chamber and its members over the last 4 years since I've been the MPP for Kitchener-Conestoga, and you could not go anywhere to any event. You could not knock on a door without hearing, "We want to see two-way all-day GO." It's been definitely I'll even say probably the number one priority for me over the initial time period, first couple of years of our tenure as the PC government. And we've made more progress towards two-way all-day GO than any government in the history of Ontario. So it's really great to see more work being done, obviously through and maybe even give you a little update on where things are at right now. So work through kind of Guelph to that Georgetown corridor, upgrading some of the level crossings, putting in better signals so that we can get that travel time down. I think we all want to see it under 2 hours. That's definitely the goal from here to Union Station. So a lot of that work's being done. We know the train almost slows to a crawl for those of you who have been on it. through that Guelph sort of section where we're talking about almost being able, if you could reach out the window, you could probably touch some of the houses that it goes by. So working to shore that up, there's some electrification that's going on. We're looking at being able to plan for the future. Obviously, we've expanded capacity, we've added more cars, and we've got it in the budget. We are committed to doing this. It is something that we view as a major priority for the region. There's roughly 30,000 people, as Karen said, that commute out of the region on a daily basis, and there's about 30,000 people that commute into the region on a daily basis. Not only that, we're extending service to London. So we've got the pilot program going right now. We're looking at where we can develop some new stops along the corridor. Obviously, Breslau is one of those that's been talked about for a while. We've got a great working relationship with Metrolinx in the region to try and see that come to fruition. And of course, if the community in Wilmot is willing to host a station, I'm sure that we'd be, whoever forms government over the next 4 years definitely is going to need to evaluate what that looks like. So to answer your question, absolutely 100% committed to it. And we've done more work than anybody else. Thanks for the question. It's a great one.
Thank you. We'll stick with transit in this next question as well. And Melanie, will begin with you on it. Transit ridership remains well below pre-pandemic levels, but there hasn't been a commensurate drop in operating costs. How will your plan support keeping transit viable?
Great, thanks for the question. So yes, ridership is low, and it's like I said in the previous question, we have a pretty good, robust plan in our platform to work with transit and get people more taking transit. I will share, I'm sure most people already know that we are committed to reducing fares to $1 in all transit across Ontario and here. I will share that I had a few calls actually when that announcement came out from people living in the rural side of the riding who said, how is that going to help me? Because I don't have access to transit in my area. I mean, myself included, I don't have access to transit. People on my team here at the campaign office, they take the bus in from Wilmot and they have to wait an hour and a half for the bus. So it's there, but there needs to be a lot of work to interconnect our community together. So we are committed to investing $375 million in annual operating funding costs to work with the municipalities to expand, extend, and really make transit accessible throughout all of Ontario, especially here in Kitchener-Conestoga, something that I believe in very strongly that we need to work on. And of course, we'll engage with the local communities and organizations and municipalities to make sure that this can happen in an appropriate and timely manner so that everyone can be connected in the riding. Yeah, I think that's the highlights of our transit platform. And again, the housing situation will be building more houses around transit. We're really committed to making it a walkable, livable community and to get as many cars off the road and make sure people are using transportation.
Thank you. Mike, how will your plan support keeping transit viable?
Yeah, this through the pandemic was something that came up quite a bit through discussions with the region and our local municipalities. As I'm sure most of you know, Grand River Transit, which is administered by the region of Waterloo, had ridership knocked down to almost nothing at certain points through the pandemic. So I will say in Ontario, PC government stepped up. We made sure to top up the gas tax rebates that come back to the municipalities to focus on transit. The Safe Restart funding that we provided municipalities as well was able to be allocated towards transit projects. We've also invested quite heavily in the region using the Investing in Canada infrastructure partnership program that is a three-way partnership between the federal government, the Ontario government, and municipal governments across Canada and of course across the province here in Ontario. And we're able to help them shoulder some of the costs for building new bus maintenance facilities, new bus shelters around the region as well. And of course, that's going to continue as we move forward. Transit is obviously a big part of our Ontario PC platform, but a lot of focus, we always talk about sort of, the subways and things around Toronto, but we've got to look a lot broader than that. And just going back to the previous question about GO Train, we're obviously increasing that. We're working with municipalities to understand their needs so that we can build more transit through the region. And as Melanie said, it's not just about the cities, if you will. It's about the interconnectivity across the region into our rural townships, working with municipalities to figure out what their needs are, and working with the community, quite frankly, to figure out what their needs are. And that's really what we're committed to. And that's what we're proposing as we move forward.
Thank you, Mike. Karen, same question for you. How will your plan support keeping transit viable?
Thank you so much. I think we all know that connected, reliable, sustainable transit and public transportation in particular is really key to a thriving community. The Ontario NDP will cover 50% of net operating costs to municipalities for their public transportation system. And what that does is provide stable funding, but also opportunity to expand their services. We know in Kitchener-Conestoga that particularly out in the rural townships, that there's not really accessible public transportation. And if it is there, it doesn't run very frequently. And so it's not really a viable solution for most people. Most people in the townships require a vehicle to get to where they need to go. And so we're looking more broadly at, as I said earlier, about how interconnected these systems are. When people rely on cars, they rely on gas, which has become expensive. And it also is very expensive. The infrastructure, repairing, maintaining, building roadways is very expensive. And so the more we can get people to look at alternative modes of transportation, the better off our environment will be as well. And also building really those walkable, sustainable communities. So, providing 50% of the net operating costs to municipalities means that they can expand, they can meet the needs of their community in a more meaningful way. I mean, lowering fares is great, but if the service isn't there, that doesn't help people switch to alternative modes of transportation. So that's a really key piece to the transit platform with the Ontario NDP, is returning and providing those 50% net operating costs, which is a reversal of a PC and Liberal move, which that funding was downloaded onto taxpayers. So it certainly is a sustainable opportunity to partner with municipalities and build better public transportation systems for the people in Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Karen. The next question that we will field, we'll begin with Mike on this, but we'll be speaking about emerging from COVID. So Mike, businesses have experienced numerous shutdowns and restrictions during the pandemic. How will your plan ensure that future disruptions will be minimized in the face of future waves?
Yeah, it's a great question. And obviously, I know we've got a lot of members of the business community that are on here on the call. I think we did a very good job of trying to navigate the pandemic. It was tough. You know, there was no playbook for this. And I think everyone really did their part. So congratulations to everyone that's here on the call for doing what you needed to do to make sure that you stayed safe. But we're trying to look forward. We're trying to make sure that we are in a position where we don't have to go back to the measures that were taken previously. And the biggest piece of that is going to be investments in healthcare and increasing capacity. Increasing hospital capacity here in the region has been something I've been fighting for the last 4 years. We've seen some really, really great announcements come forward. We're building a new hospital here in the region, which is great. The new hospital plan and grant was just announced not too long ago, with Grand River Hospital and St. Mary's Hospital to begin planning for that future hospital. We've also allocated more beds here in the region, over 400 beds going to our 3 different hospitals that are here. We've made investments into community healthcare, not just in the city, but also in the townships. We've opened a new nurse practitioner-led clinic. We are making renewed investments into the Woolwich Community Health Center. We're making sure that there's really a holistic approach to healthcare as we move forward, because when we really look at what kind of the crux of having to shut down and having to impact businesses was, we just didn't have enough hospital capacity. So we don't want to go back. We don't want to see that. We want to make sure that we are investing and making smart investments into things that will keep this province open. Should we see another uptick in COVID-19 cases, or who knows, what could be the next thing that comes along in the next 20, 30, 40 years? We need to be prepared. So we saw that coming into COVID, PPE stocks were depleted, were outdated. We won't get caught flat-footed again, having to rely on manufacturing from overseas countries. We're now making roughly 70% of PPE that's used in Ontario right here, which is fantastic. We've seen a lot of great businesses in Waterloo region actually starting to produce gowns and masks and gloves and all of the things that we need in our hospitals and long-term care settings and businesses. So we're really trying to push forward. We're really trying to make sure that we're going to be making those needed investments. We're well on the way to do that. And when we talk about keeping the province open, those are, from an Ontario PC standpoint, what we believe is going to be able to do that. It's a great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Karen, the same question for you. How will your plan ensure that future disruptions will be minimized in the face of future waves?
Yeah, thank you so much. First, I think it's really important to acknowledge that COVID is still impacting our healthcare system, our education system, businesses, the workforce. Small businesses are still suffering and trying to recover from closures. I myself was forced to close down my small business at the onset of the pandemic. It wasn't feasible for me to continue. And for me and for the NDP, it's not just about healthcare it's about prevention. So we need to prevent further impacts on the systems and further closures. Our priority is to keep people healthy. So essentially what we're looking at is a difference in, rather than relying on the healthcare system to heal people, care for people, we're looking at how we can prevent transmission in the first place. So supporting locally procured PPE, reliable testing, addressing infrastructure upgrades, like HVAC, air filtration, all of these can prevent and help to prevent further transmission and further people from getting sick. I think about nurses and the impact that this has had on them. I think of shortages of education workers in schools because they're sick and need to take time off. It's not just about the healthcare system and when people end up in hospital, it's about preventing people from getting ill in the first place. Fingers crossed, we will emerge from this pandemic soon. As Mike mentioned, there are other potential things that we will face in the future. So being prepared is certainly part of this equation and ensuring that we have things in place. We will launch an inquiry into the pandemic response to make sure that we don't end up in a situation where we are fumbling between closure, open again. And so those are just a number of things that we can do to help businesses, families, the education sector as we, fingers crossed, emerge from the pandemic.
Thank you, Karen. Melanie, same question for you. How will your plan ensure that future disruptions will be minimized in the face of future waves?
Yeah, definitely a great question. So small businesses are the heart of our economy, right? They bring people together. They make our communities thriving and bring so many people together. And they're central to our recovery plan as well. And yes, there's a lot we need to do for the pandemic, healthcare, public health, and we need to invest in many areas. But when it comes to small businesses, and what I think I didn't see over the past couple of years is really keeping consistent and clear communication and keeping those relationships going. We really need to be able to communicate well and work well with our business partners to see what they need in order to stay open and not spring things on them at the last minute or and the opening and closing and opening and closing. It was a terrible time during the pandemic. A lot of small businesses had to shut down, as Karen mentioned for herself personally, and it was hard to see. I also think we need to really support local. I do that personally. I try, especially always, especially during the pandemic, I made a very conscious effort to make sure we supported our local businesses and supported them and promoted them so that they could get that. Get people into their businesses and hopefully keep them open during the pandemic. Just some areas that are the Ontario Liberal Party is looking at to help bring small businesses out of the pandemic and become stronger is we'll eliminate the corporate taxes for small businesses that have been hit hardest over the last for the next 2 years. We'll also a part of our platform is really to help businesses go digital too, which I think will help in the future as well if there were any disruptions to try and expand those opportunities for small businesses. But I think at the end of the day, it's really keeping that line of communication open, consistent and clear. So there's the mentality of working together in a situation like this.
Thank you. We will stick from emerging from COVID, and Karen, will start with you on the next question. It feels like the hard-learned lessons from SARS were forgotten by the time COVID-19 hit, and we paid that cost in deaths, delayed health procedures, and a closed economy. Put funding aside for a moment, how will your plan ensure that the lessons learned from this pandemic aren't lost as the public's mind moves on?
Thank you. That's a really good question. As I mentioned earlier, we will begin an inquiry into the response from this pandemic to address and uncover lessons learned. Mike mentioned this, and I can certainly give grace here. There was no playbook for this. This was something that was new in sort of this time frame. We've had past pandemics, of course, so I don't want to minimize those, but there were certainly things that needed to be done, and I can certainly give grace to the government for, as we learned more about this particular pandemic, about COVID-19, how it was spread and so on, that things needed to shift and change. So certainly we'll acknowledge the grace necessary in that, for sure. But there were lessons learned, and we need to make sure that we don't forget them. We need to make sure that we are prepared for anything that can come up in the future. So, COVID spreading through the air is really significant, and addressing HVAC and air filtration is going to be key for any future pandemic that may come up. I've lost part of what the first part of your question was, so I apologize. But as how can we make sure that lessons are learned? Being prepared with PPE, and also there were lessons learned early on from other parts of the world. So really looking at what was happening in Europe early on, looking what was happening in British Columbia in long-term care. It was really unfortunate seeing the outbreaks in long-term care in British Columbia, and then watching that stretch to Ontario and feeling like there weren't meaningfully those weren't meaningfully addressed here, and then seeing it take place, it was a bit of Groundhog Day, right? And so we need very clear plans in place to address any future pandemic. I hope I answered the question fully.
Thank you, Karen. Melanie, the same question for you. And I do know it's kind of a tricky one. So how will your plan ensure that the lessons learned from this pandemic aren't lost as the public's mind moves on?
That's such a great question. We really have to work on rebuilding the trust. To what was said earlier, I mean, no one saw this coming. So there was a lot of learning during this time. And like you teach anyone, teach my kids and myself, when you are in an experience, you have to learn from it, grow from it, and then take the action that needs to be taken so that this can be avoided or at least lessened in the future. We are committed to conducting an independent public inquiry to review what happened during the pandemic. And we're also committed to establishing an all-party committee to lead the response. which will receive regular mandatory public reviews and updates so that we can continue to work forward on this. I also think it's important to express the importance and the need to collaborate with our partners, right? Businesses, municipalities, the people who live here and their experiences. Healthcare, definitely part of the plan is to invest and make sure we are working closely with public health and our healthcare system to make sure that they have all the necessary supports and resources to go forward if there are future waves. We learned all about this with needing more staff, more beds, more spaces, and we'll definitely be investing in all of that going forward as well. But again, we have to the independent inquiry and the committee and all of that work will be done in collaboration, and we'll all work together to sit down and see what needs to be done going forward. It's not something that's going to be lost. Definitely something that's going to be invested in time and working together to make sure we capture everything that needs to be done. We're going to improve access to PCR testing. That's part of our plan. And also increasing laboratory capacity for future testing. We'll make sure that we have a robust stockpile of at-home rapid tests and a good stockpile of high quality masks for future use as well, so that that's all available. And I think it's also important to make sure that we're working with our local businesses and we're supporting our local businesses to support what's needed for the future as well. And again, working together in that collaboration is so key.
Thank you, Melanie. Mike, same thing for you. Put funding aside for a moment. How will your plan ensure the lessons learned from this pandemic aren't lost as the public's mind moves on?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And I'm glad it's been asked, because a lot of people want to just talk about, the investment and the money and what you're going to do and this and that. And when you really get down to it, these are the real questions that need to be asked. So early on in the pandemic, and again, thank you for acknowledging that, it was tough as a government. It was tough for governments all across Canada, the world, quite frankly. This was a global pandemic. And early on, we struck some parliamentary committees that are all party committees to be able to evaluate what was happening, look at what was going on from a provincial perspective. We had the committee on economic and finance actually sitting all through the summer when the legislature was adjourned to be able to meet with small businesses. They put in hours and hours and hours of delegations hearing the different things that were affecting people all across this province. I know there was a really great contingent from Waterloo region that was part of that. But when we look at sort of the lessons learned, obviously from SARS and moving forward from that point into what became the COVID-19 pandemic, we were really behind the 8 ball. We were left with PPE stocks that were expired. And, I really, we're all getting along pretty well here, and I don't really want to take too many shots, but this was under the Liberal government where Stephen Del Duca was sitting at the cabinet table. So we literally come into the warehouse and see hundreds of thousands, millions of pieces of PPE that can't be used because they were let to expire. So previous governments, they really didn't learn the lessons from SARS. And then we were left to deal with what has happened now. So looking forward, obviously, we've seen a renewed focus or where we need to really be putting that focus in our healthcare system, in long-term care. There's a lot of lessons learned, figuring out best practices from other jurisdictions, whether that be here in Canada or in the United States or around the world, and really putting a comprehensive review together. I know this is something that we're all looking at doing. We've already started doing that, and really trying to get to the crux of the problem, obviously learning the lessons from the past and making sure that they aren't repeated again going forward. So I can give you all the numbers if you want, but I'm really glad that you're taking the numbers out of the equation, because it really starts to humanize things and personalize it. I think that's important. We need to remember these are people we're talking about. It's not just numbers.
Thank you, Mike. We'll go on to the next topic of discussion, which is private sector growth. And Melanie, we'll begin with you on the first question here. A concern newer small businesses continually raise is the difficulty of doing business with governments. How will your plan make it easier for companies to participate in government procurement and sell domestic products and solutions to meet domestic needs?
Yes, great question. And it was great to meet with many business sectors during the last few months and really hear their concerns about that. And I learned from those conversations that we really need to promote and support our local businesses and work together to use the local procurement and support everyone here locally. Our platform is committed to working with partners and use strategic public procurement to bring more production back to our province and promote made in Ontario. And I'll add made in Kitchener-Conestoga, or this area here in the region of Waterloo, because as a local representative, if elected, that is what I would be supporting. So it's nice to see from a provincial level and then taking it to a local level. So I think, again, it gets down to the point of having that open dialogue and that communication and really working together with local businesses and hearing their needs and supporting, bringing in that talent and that expertise that we have right here locally and spotlighting it, right? And making sure we're helping one another and supporting one another and working together going forward. So I think that's pretty much the focus of our party.
Thank you, Melanie. Mike, concern that newer small businesses continually raise is the difficulty of doing business with governments. How will your plan make it easier for those companies to participate in government procurement?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is actually, I've got a firsthand view of this. So prior to getting into politics, I led business development for a company that did business, obviously here in Canada, in the US, and around the world. And consistently would get pushed away by the Ontario and Canadian governments. And we would actually get to a point where, you know, as an Ontario-based company, 80 to 90% of our business was based elsewhere, whether that be in the US or to a smaller extent overseas, just given geographic proximity. But this is something that I've had many meetings on, and it's things that we're looking to address, and we have already started to address. The procurement cycle in Ontario is obviously very difficult when you're looking at trying to grow private sector businesses by doing business with the government. When we look at the best ways to achieve that, obviously partnerships, you know, the government has a problem, a private sector business may have a great way to solve it. But unfortunately, just given the way that the tendering process worked previously, they weren't able to get a seat at the table. So we've changed that. We've put a renewed focus on Ontario-based company, Canadian-based companies. They get preference points now when they're actually going out to tender, which is great. Obviously, we want to make sure we're getting the best bang for the buck for the taxpayers of Ontario, but at the same time, being able to foster growth is a huge part of what we need to do when we look at these tendering processes. So these processes had been in place for quite some time, and being able to really revamp those, change those, meet the needs of the business community, really is something I think that's been well received. We've had many meetings with the Chamber, we've had many meetings with other small business organizations, and of course larger businesses as well. But this is our commitment to moving forward, is making sure that businesses have a seat at the table, and that we really put a bigger emphasis on trying to foster Ontario-based companies. We're making investments through many different government streams, and also looking at changing the procurement model, and we've begun to do that. So they're great things. We're looking forward to doing more work with the business sector, obviously after June 2nd, and really I think you're going to see Ontario thriving over the next 4 years with the PC government.
Thank you, Mike. Karen, same question for you. How will your plan make it easier for companies to participate in government procurement?
Thank you. Yeah, as others have mentioned, there are certainly barriers that prevent small businesses and local businesses from being part of that government procurement process. Partially, it's about diversifying the government's procurement chain and leveraging the talent and the innovation sector that we have in Ontario, but very much in Waterloo region. There are a lot of solutions being built here that are not provided opportunities. And one thing that I think is really important to address are those barriers that businesses face to even getting themselves to be at the table, so to speak. So, for Black, women-led small businesses are significant barriers to even accessing capital in order to be in a position to be on the radar or be part of that government procurement chain. And so the Ontario NDP are going to be launching a fund designated specifically for both small businesses and entrepreneurs who face those systemic barriers to accessing capital. So what we're building is a grassroots kind of model to support those small businesses and get them to a level and to the table so they can access some of that procurement. There are other issues and barriers within the procurement process, as others have mentioned, but it's really about looking at it holistically and making sure that businesses locally and across Ontario are in a place that they're able to access those other opportunities with government procurement, because they're there. And right now, we're seeing businesses outside of the province and or outside of the country provided opportunities that we've got solutions to right here in Waterloo region and in Ontario as well, and specifically in Kitchener-Conestoga. So it's a holistic and a full approach that we need to be looking at.
Yeah, Mike, I'll allow a response.
I hate to do this, but I just got a message pop up on my screen that says my computer is going to have a forced restart in 15 minutes. So if it's possible, I'm going to try and log in through another device. I'm not sure if we can do that, but I will be right back.
Sure. Yeah, we'll carry on. Thanks, Mike. Okay. We will go to healthcare for the next topic of discussion here. And Karen, we'll begin with you. It was supposed to be Mike in rotation, but we'll begin with you on this next one. Do you support and will you honor the recent commitment to building new hospital infrastructure in Waterloo region?
Thank you. Hospital infrastructure is, our region is growing. We're one of the largest or fastest growing regions. And it's certainly the healthcare system as a whole is necessary to look at. There are folks that are moving to this area because of jobs and can't find family physicians, and that is spread out to the hospital areas as well. It's very important that we also not just look at building beds. I know the current government has talked a lot about that, or the most recent government, I guess, has talked a lot about that. But what we're also seeing right now is a shortage of staffing. So a bed is great, but if you don't have staffing there to ensure that the patients are being cared for, it almost doesn't matter that the bed is there. And so again, looking at this at a holistic approach, building hospitals, yes, thumbs up, but also really meaningfully addressing the staffing issues that we're facing today. Significant nursing shortages, nurses that are leaving the sector because of the working conditions, because of Bill 124, which we would immediately repeal, because of stress, burnout, all of those pieces are significant factors into, whether we have a building, a hospital is great, but if we don't have people there to care for us, it almost doesn't matter, as I said. So yes, we need a better healthcare system, hospitals, and as well ensure that the staffing is there is really, really key to this.
Thank you, Karen. Melanie, same question for you about supporting the need for a new hospital in our region here.
Yes, so definitely on board to supporting and working with our local healthcare teams about improving infrastructure and future hospital for sure. I know some of our plans already in the platform, in the Ontario Liberal platform does talk about looking at funding an MRI machine at St. Mary's Hospital. It's my understanding there isn't one there. So there is parts of our platform that addresses local issues here in Waterloo region as well. And to Karen's point, it is more than that. The entire healthcare system needs investing. We also will repeal Bill 124 and invest in supporting and treating all our healthcare workers with the dignity and support and respect that they deserve. So yes, we are committed to supporting better infrastructure in the area. Had many conversations with local nurses and other medical professionals about that need, and it's clear to all of us that is something that we need to invest in and work together. Otherwise, we're going to be right where we are today. So it's something we need to take seriously and something we are committed to as a party, and I am committed to you as a possible MPP in the future to working with everyone here in the local riding.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm not sure. I see Mike is back, but I'm not sure if he's actually back. So Mike,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Okay, I'm having a little trouble with the video. We'll get that sorted out. But could you just repeat the question again for me?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Mike, do you support and will you honor the recent commitment to building new hospital infrastructure in Waterloo region?
Yeah, so 100%. This is something that that is near and dear to my heart. It's something I've been fighting for the last 4 years, and was really proud to be able to make an announcement just a little over a month ago, I think now, where the Ontario PC government was committed to building a new hospital here in Waterloo region. The first stages of that are obviously the hospital planning grant. There was $5 million allocated to that. And what that really does is kickstarts the process, looking for the available land, starting to discuss architectural needs, community needs, looking at what services will be brought over from the current hospitals. We've got very aging infrastructure here. St. Mary's Hospital is almost 100 years old, and Grand River Hospital is not far behind. So when we look at what we're doing, yes, I did hear you, Karen, talk a little bit about, beds are great, but you need the staff to be able to be there. And we have committed to hiring 30,000 new nurses and PSWs. We're looking at ways that we can increase support staff in hospitals. I think that's one thing when we talk about the heroes of the pandemic and the people who are on the front lines. We fail to really understand that those people are the cleaning staff, the orderlies, the people who are transporting people between healthcare facilities. And there needs to be an investment in those sectors as well. And an Ontario PC government is committed to doing that, obviously all across the province, but more notably here in Waterloo region. And just to reaffirm the answer to your question, yes, absolutely, we are committed to building new hospital infrastructure here in the region.
Thank you, Mike. We will move on to the next topic, which is talent. So from tech to the trades, tell us your plan to address critical talent shortages. We've had some underrepresented sources of talent in our business and workplace. So what's your plan for engaging those underrepresented sources? Mike, we'll begin with you on this question.
Sure. This is something we've heard about time and time again over the last, quite frankly, it's been a problem for a while, but really has come to a head, obviously through the pandemic. People changing jobs with supply chain issues going on, really putting a renewed focus on skilled trades, moving everybody away from, or not moving everybody away, but moving that sort of collective notion that you must go to university to be able to be successful. We have seen shop programs removed from schools. We've seen a lack of focus on college education, vocational training. And as a PC government, what we have done and what we are going to continue to do is move that forward. We're bringing shop classes back to schools. We're focusing on apprenticeship programs. We've removed the barriers from the Ontario College of Trades, which was just a dismal program that I've heard from so many people that it took so long to get through. The training was bad, trying to figure out how they would take time off work to have to go to school in an area that may not even be within a 2-hour, 3-hour drive. I can give you an example of someone from Espanola, Ontario, who's had to come down to Mohawk College to be able to finish off his apprenticeship training. So working on ways to be able to streamline this process, get more people into the skilled trades, and reduce that stigma that, you know, it's not sexy, if you will, to be in the skilled trades, that it's a dirty job. People don't want to do them. These are good jobs. These are 6-figure jobs with pensions, with bonuses, with healthcare. It's really jobs that I think a lot of people want to be in, but they don't know about them. So being able to build more awareness, putting a renewed focus on investments in skilled trades training through our college system. We've seen, obviously, Conestoga College here does a great job. It's the largest trade school in Ontario. And we've made some significant investments here locally to help them build. They're building a new skilled trades campus. They're going to bring everything under one roof. And I'm very proud to be part of a rebuilding of a system that is going to put skilled trades first and you know, working for workers and getting people into these good jobs.
Thank you, Mike. Karen, same question for you when it comes to addressing the underrepresented sources of talent.
Thank you. I mentioned this earlier, you know, local talent is only, you know, as good as the local services are. So if people can't find a healthcare professional, like a family physician, or they can't find a home or a house that fits their needs, we're going to find them looking elsewhere. I've had conversations at the door where people are considering leaving the province because of the housing situation. And so when there aren't services in place, we won't be able to attract talent. So we're looking at services like public education, properly funded public education, properly funded transit, the healthcare system, as we talked about previously. All of these things are connected to whether businesses can recruit and retain talent. You know, it's one thing to recruit someone with great pay and benefits and so on, but if they can't find the things that meet their needs here, they won't be able to stay. And so we will find that we're losing them. You know, we have 3 very highly acclaimed post-secondary institutions in Waterloo region with a talent pool at our fingertips, right? And those students are accruing debt from school. They're finding the housing market unattainable. They've moved back home to live with their parents while they get their feet back under them. And so part of this is reducing the debt load of students. So we will be offering more grants, not charging interest on that accrued debt as people attend post-secondary institutions, both colleges and universities, and other types of training. So at the very least, the government shouldn't be making money off of that debt. But all of those things, as I say, the talent is here, or the potential for the talent is here, but we need to address those other issues, the housing, the healthcare, investing in public education, so that we can attract and retain and keep people in Kitchener-Conestoga and Waterloo region more broadly.
Thank you, Karen. Melanie, same question for you. What's your plan for engaging underrepresented sources of talent?
Yeah, so much like what's already been said, we really have to focus on the local talent and give them the opportunity to succeed here right in Waterloo region, from making life more affordable, for giving them more opportunities to attend post-secondary education. But to look at we have a very good plan on economic dignity, which will help people get into the workforce, right? We're looking at bringing in a regional living wage starting at $16, 10 paid job protected sick days, also giving funding for businesses to compensate for those 10 paid sick days. We believe in equal pay and equal work, and we'll bring in more benefit packages that are portable for each person as they go from job to job. And we are very focused on bringing more people into the skilled trades, because that's needed for many parts of the platform as well, to work on housing and make that more livable in the region as well. And talking about post-secondary, we are going to we're going to reverse the cuts to OSAP and support more options for those that want to go into post-secondary as well. So it's really a wraparound service, really, to help everyone succeed and get the necessary tools and resources they need to fit into the right job that they want to succeed at. And we have to provide many different options for them to get into the fields that they want to get into. And I think it's really working with the local talent here and hearing what their needs are, and working with students and from everywhere across the province and here in Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Melanie. The next question, we will go to the topic of local government. What are the key infrastructure challenges in this riding that you will prioritize? Melanie, I know you just finished that question, but I will ask you to begin this first question here.
Well, I think so. Working with our local government, I'm going to be pretty broad here. I think it just comes back to the fact that we really want to consult and engage and work together, I think, and rebuild the trust with our municipalities, and really work to listen to them and bring in the needs that they need to succeed. So we've talked about housing, right? We'll talk about ending exclusionary zoning and cutting some red tape so we can build more affordable housing in a quick and appropriate time frame, and to really help the people in the riding in that area. Another area that we can talk about working with local government is just respecting and empowering their autonomy, and refusing using the notwithstanding clause, and really respecting the decisions that local government and municipalities are working with. We've talked a lot about in this riding too, when it comes to the MZOs and the amount of MZOs that have been going skyrocketing over the last, we have been friendly, and I'll go into that and say that with the current government, it's an abuse of power with the amount of MZOs that have happened. And one of the areas that we're committed to is scrapping the MZO process, but bringing in stricter rules and working with municipalities and consulting with the right people in the community, along with the Indigenous people and residents of the riding, to make it a very full, transparent process. So those are just some of the areas that come to top of mind. I'm sure there's many more, but those are what comes to top of mind when we're talking about working with our local governments.
Thank you. Mike, same question. What are the key infrastructure challenges in this riding that you will prioritize?
Yeah, I think you can look back at my track record and see what some of those are. When we look at the broader infrastructure needs of the community, obviously talking about two-way all-day go, which we've already done, that was a big one. I think if we boil things down a little bit more, kind of to a more granular level in each municipality, one thing that has been constant is new investment in recreational and community facilities. We're building a new rec center up in Wellesley Township. The community really rallied around. I've met with them there many times, working with Mayor Nowak, and of course working with the region and Chair Redmond, and was great to be able to be up at the sod turning for that just a few weeks ago, just before the election really kicked off. We're looking at ways that we can partner with municipalities around, obviously we've talked about healthcare. Woolwich Community Health Services is a big partner, obviously, with the region and with the province. These are things that the community is looking at. When we're talking about roads and bridges and making sure that we're keeping connective links through communities open and making them safe. I know we've got the Bridge Street Bridge in Wilmot Township, for example, that was going to be closed and was not wide enough for farming equipment to come across. Wilmot Township decided that was a priority for them. They wanted to see some provincial funding come in, and we've done that. So we're going to continue to make those necessary investments in the community. We're going to continue to have a great relationship with all 7 of our municipalities here in Waterloo region, and working with AMO which is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and in that broader spectrum from a provincial standpoint, and continue to build those relationships, foster good conversations, and really get to better understand what community needs are.
Thank you. Karen, same question for you. What are the key infrastructure challenges in this riding that you will prioritize?
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you repeating the question every time as well. It's helpful. Um, our local municipal governments are very closely connected to their communities. And it's really important that we continue to foster partnerships with our municipal governments because they have a beat on the community that we maybe don't have, right? At the provincial level. And so, local councils develop on the strategies for growth, what services and key social issues that they are able to address in ways that the provincial government can't. So it really is necessary to create a true partnership. And so if I'm talking about what my priorities are the community's priorities. My priorities are what the local municipalities are saying that their priorities are. It's about providing funding and resources so that they can realize the things that they want to in the community. So as I mentioned before, it's providing 50% of net operating costs for public transportation so that it's reliable, affordable. Melanie mentioned the MZO, so not overriding local planning processes with MZOs. We won't ask councils to bring in more aggregate pits. Right now, that process is not coordinated well. It's a risk to the water supply in Waterloo region. It's certainly something that is really important to people in Wilmot Town, but across the riding as well. And so, we'll support local municipalities and their calls for inclusionary zoning. As far as key infrastructure, as I said, the priorities of the local councils will be part of the priorities of me because they are so closely connected to community. And so it's really key that we build those relationships and those partnerships and ensure that we're kind of that bridge and providing opportunities so that local councils can realize, their plans in a really meaningful and significant way.
Thank you, Karen. We will now end the discussion with closing remarks from the candidates. So we will have a 1 minute maximum amount of time for closing remarks, and it will be reversed from the opening remarks. So we'll begin with Mike Harris from the PC Party with his closing remarks.
Well, thanks very much, James, and sorry about the confusion not being able to have the camera on here. I've been trying to get it on for a little bit, but doesn't seem to be working. But listen, just to kind of sum things up, I think this was a great discussion here today. And again, thank you to Karen and Melanie for being here, and thank you to the Chamber for putting this on and all the partners that are involved. I just really want to leave everyone with this. Really, we've got a pretty simple 5-point plan when we look at what the Ontario PCs are putting forward to really do and when and if we become government on June 2nd. We've talked a little bit about all of these points here today. Obviously, rebuilding Ontario's economy. We're going to continue working for workers. We're going to build highways and key infrastructure, which we just talked about. We're going to continue to do our best to keep costs down in a rather uncertain time when we look at what's happening around the world. And of course, something that was a reoccurring theme here today, which was our plan to stay open. And again, I really just want to thank everybody for putting this together, and looking forward to hopefully getting out and knocking on some more doors this afternoon if the weather is going to cooperate. So cheers, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Mike. And then now we will have Melanie with her closing remarks.
I wasn't sure what the order was there. So thank you to everyone. Thank you, James, for moderating today, and thank you to the Chamber and all our sponsors. Great to have a conversation with Mike and Karen today and hear their party's platform and things that they'll bring if elected. Listen, I think most of my comments today and most of what I believe in is really collaborating and working in partnership and transparency and connecting with the people in the community from all levels, residents, municipalities, leaders in our riding and across Ontario. That is my goal here, and I have the experience to back it up. I have many years of working with people, listening to them and bringing forward their concerns and taking actionable steps. When I worked in management with Scotiabank for many years as a school board trustee, and in the leadership roles as a school board trustee with chair and vice chair, also the chair of the governance committee. So I have that experience, and I'm proud of the Ontario Liberal Party's platform. I find it to be very comprehensive. And I feel everyone can see themselves in it. We are providing a place to grow and make things more affordable for people in Ontario and here in Kitchener-Conestoga. My absolute commitment to everyone is that I will listen and lead with compassion and understanding, because we are here to work together and work for you and bring your voices to Queen's Park. So thank you again, everyone, for today and the opportunity to answer questions.
Thank you, Melanie. And Karen will have your closing remarks now.
You saved the best for last. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll echo the other candidates and just thank everyone for showing up today, and James for moderating the conversation. Really appreciate that. You know, as an invested member of this community, it's really important to me that we have representation that cares, that listens, that advocates for the needs of the people in Kitchener-Conestoga at Queen's Park. To me, it's not about bringing the conversation from Queen's Park to the community, rather hearing the voices and advocating for those in Kitchener-Conestoga in place and space. I live in this riding, and so I have, I guess, invested interest in who is representing us at Queen's Park. And like many of the other folks in this community, I want someone that listens, that's responsive, that collaborates. But this election is more than just about me. It's really, really about the future. So a future where services are available, where everyone has a home that fits needs, where there's access to public education, healthcare, and where life is affordable. Right now, there are a lot of things that are broken in the systems, and you know, they really need a close look, and they really need to be fixed. You know, the NDP are 10 seats away from forming government. We have plans. We are ready, willing, rolling up our sleeves, set to go to fix the things that are broken. And I'm very excited to be able to have this opportunity to provide a voice to this community at Queen's Park. So again, thanks to everyone for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Chamber and Rogers, I would like to thank all candidates for taking time from their busy schedules to participate in this forum today. Thank you to our title sponsor, Kitchener-Waterloo Association of Realtors, and our media sponsors, City News 570 and Rogers TV. And of course, I would also like to thank everyone from the community for your attendance. If you are a resident of Kitchener-Conestoga, the election date is rapidly approaching, so please ensure you are aware of voting location. The Chamber and Rogers hope this forum has provided some relevant perspectives on your issues of concern. Thank you so much.